Hey folks, this is a sponsored video. Goodbye. Little Chris checks on him, and when Joshua says he's alright, Chris slaps him in the face. Oh, why? And Moses is like, cool, we can wait here. Time skip. Well, was God, like, busy with other Isn't this the main thing going on right now? Hello, lovely people. Welcome back to my channel. Welcome if you are new. My name is Emma. I am already sweating. This is terrible. I'm probably going to dab myself a lot over the course of this video. We are in the heat wave. Sweaty Emma is back. If you're new here and you don't know what I'm talking about, it'll become obvious very quickly. In fact, it probably already is. Today we are going to do a much requested, by which I mean at least 2 people have requested this, a recap and a review of the film Joshua and the Promised Land. It's one of those notorious old, hokey CG productions made by a single man, a singleman. People wanted me to check this film out. I can understand why. It's kind of notorious. It's had a, I think, a Nostalgia Critic review. I haven't watched any other people's reviews because I wanted to go in blind, obviously. And I think people might be surprised by my feelings about this film. Although I think in context with the stuff that we've watched on this channel before, it will make perfect sense. So I'm going to do the recap. I've got the board. I've got a brand new pointer. It's going to be great. I printed the pictures much bigger than usual this time. I didn't really mean to. So they are a lot easier to see. You can see the low quality of the printing, unfortunately. As usual, this will all become clear as we go. Let me move my microphone back into the board zone. The boardroom, if you will. This should all become clear as we progress, but in general, red lines are direct connections. Anything marked with a grey cat is our sort of first layer of narrative, our real world, so to speak, the real world of the film. Anything marked with a white kitty is a sort of meta-level character that exists sort of on top of this real-world level. Everything else is sort of the bottom layer, the sort of dream world, fictional world of the narrative. And I'll describe this kooky cast of characters to you as we go. After we've done the fabulous recap, I will give you my thoughts as a little review. It's gonna be fun. It's gonna be a wild ride. We only get like 2 weeks of summer here. But it is now. It's happening. Let's crack the heck on, shall we? We open on this beautiful river shot with a weird water pouring sound effect. My first thought was, well, that's weird. The sound effect must be a mistake, because that sounds more like a fountain than a river. But then the title Fountain Distribution appears on the screen, and it's like, that's what the sound effect is for. So what's the river all about? Fountain distribution do not exist anywhere online. I've looked. The audiovisual database recognizes the name just from this video. Some defunct Christian film distribution company, who knows? If you have any idea, fucking let me know, because I got zip. The opening credits are super dramatic. It's white text on black. There's this kind of bumping, really epic music in the background. It's really building up to something. I looked up the first credit, Jonathan Dowerman, and I immediately felt kind of bad because he's a real actor. I listened to his demo voice reel. He's got like really good range. He's a good voice actor. I have a feeling that Joshua in the Promised Land was kind of early in his career. I looked up the second credit and unfortunately they were only known for Joshua in the Promised Land. So family production, often a red flag, but also, more importantly, the Lion family made this CG film starring anthropomorphic animals, of which the main character is a lion. That's just a little bit of fun, isn't it? That's a little bit of fun. That's right, Jim Lyon wrote, directed, and animated this entire feature, this 1-hour film, by himself. That alone deserves a little bit of credit, right? Jim Lyon made this whole thing by himself, a single man. That means no miscommunications between the audio team, the sound team, and the visual teams. Awesome. Love that for me. Oh my god! Sorry. Just got a little jump scared. So, this happens.
The Bible tells the story of a young man named Joshua who led his people into the Promised Land.
This is probably a good time to introduce you to today's pointer. It's Rilakkuma, possibly a knockoff Rilakkuma. Rollakuma, I don't know, in a little pig costume. And I chose that because our narrator for this film is this character that I have called Meta Pig, because he doesn't get a name. Our announcer is an anthropomorphic pig, dressed only in a bow tie. No further questions. Not gonna lie, this fake out where the TV transitions into real life Joshua kinda kicks ass. So this upsettingly nude lion is Joshua. He's just a little boy, he's practicing his play sword fighting technique in his distressingly modern human home. Lions, of course, famous for their powerful bodies and incredible speed. He looks so nude. It's very awkward. Dad Lion, unnamed, comes in and just grumpily tells Joshua to pick up his shit. We get a brief glimpse of Mum Lion, who, instead of looking like a female lion, has just like human woman hair. So that's a choice that was made. How else would you know she's a lady? You can't give her boobs, they're too nude. Oh yeah, now that's a woman. They're arguing about like regular human shit. Dad Lion spends too much time on his car. It's so weird. Joshua's listening in, he's clearly a bit upset. His parents are grumpy and they're kind of ignoring him, pushing him to one side. That's this whole segment. The best part of this bit is that every time the dialogue ends, the like epic music from the opening credits comes in.
I'm trying to fix dinner.
Which is so weird for this, like, sad kid walking around his house. I'll just show you this shot of sad Joshua walking up the stairs. Note that the footsteps are perfectly timed with his walking animation. I mention this because, while the design and the CG here are clearly horrifying, it's already clear that this is made by someone who knows a little bit about what they're doing and actually wants to make something good. Considering the low-budget, lazy crap we've seen actual studios make, that is worth celebrating, in my opinion. Pig jump scare! The pig is back, and I guess is serving for, like, children's narrator, explainer, exposition character, because he just kind of spells out everything that is obvious to us from the film.
As you can see, Joshua feels kind of lost in the shuffle.
I think even if kids don't have the exact words to describe it, they can tell what Joshua is feeling from the subtext, right? We don't need Metapig to explain everything for us. You'll notice when you watch children's movies, they are not interrupted every 5 minutes by a pig in a bow tie. Kids are generally cleverer than we give them credit for. But Metapig serves another purpose. This meta-ass pig narrator doesn't just break the fourth wall to talk to us, but to send a magical flying creature into Joshua's bedroom. It spends a minute looking over this incredibly cursed stuffy shelf, and then summons a magic ball to throw at Joshua's face to wake him up. All I can tell you at this stage is that this isn't what I was expecting. Yep, that's what my face would look like if I saw this little guy floating towards me. This is Christopher Andrew Eugene Bazioni.
Christopher Andrew Eugene Bazioni, at your service.
I love the choice to give him a long, regular-ass human name. That's funny as fuck. I'm starting to think that Jim Lyon and I might share a lot of sensibilities. This kind of rules. Chris offers to take Josh on a little kind of a trip, you know? And Josh is not really sure that that's a good idea.
You trust me, don't you?
You? Christopher Andrew Eugene Bazioni? The little guy who's inexplicably floating around my room? Yeah, dog, I trust you with my life. Let's fucking go. Joshua isn't as immediately accepting as I am, but Chris asks if he trusts the guy who sent me, gesturing upwards. There's no pig to explain it in this part, but we're assuming he means God. So let's hope this isn't one of Satan's devious little tricks and get on the road. I'm telling you guys, this fucking rules. Today's video is sponsored by Magic Spoon. Magic Spoon offers super delicious cereal and treat bars that are just like the delicious weird cereals of your childhood. You know I'm a nostalgia addict. Just the slice of my life that you can see here kind of sums that up quite nicely. It's got that nostalgia vibe, it's super tasty, but it's got proper grown-up ingredients, and it suits a variety of lifestyles. Magic Spoon is high protein, keto-friendly, gluten-free, it's grain-free, soy-free, wheat-free, and naturally flavoured. The cereal has 0 grams of sugar, 13 to 14 grams of protein, and 4 to 5 grams of net carbs in every serving, and is 140 calories per serving. The Magic Spoon treats have 1 gram of sugar, 11 to 12 grams of protein, and 1 to 2 grams of net carbs in each serving, and are 130 calories per serving and very high in fibre. I got my mum onto the treats last time she visited. Our favourite thing about them is that while they're super tasty, they're also really filling, so they work so nicely for a good afternoon snack. I'm the kind of person that will relentlessly eat an entire bag of crisps or sweets, so having something actually filling as a snack is really good for me. Click the link below to get your own Magic Spoon cereal today. You can build your very own custom box with all the flavours you love. Use my code EmmaThorne for $5 off. You can choose from the best-selling cocoa, fruity, frosted, peanut butter and maple waffle flavours, plus other awesome flavours like honey nut, blueberry muffin, birthday cake, cinnamon roll and chocolate chip cookie. You can also add any of the delicious cereal treats to your order. If you want my recommendations, I'm on the honey nut right now. Not only is it delicious, but there's a picture of a bee on the box. That's pretty great. And I'm like permanently obsessed with the marshmallow treats. It's really lucky that they are so filling because they're so tasty. If they didn't fill me up, I would be inclined to maybe eat more than I should. Magic Spoon is so confident in their product, it's backed with a 100% happiness guarantee, so if you don't like it for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. So click the link below or scan my QR code, use the code EmmaThorne for $5 off, or go to magicspoon.com/EmmaThorne to save $5 on your order today. For my fellow Brits and Canadian fans, Magic Spoon does ship to Canada and the UK. We are not forgotten. Thank you very much for listening, and to Magic Spoon for sponsoring this video. And my tum-tum. Hello, tum-tum. Right, well, it's already 3 ducks past bubble, so we better crack on. I don't know what this powering up sound effect is all about. Maybe Chris is a robot. The sound effects, guys, in this bit are so funny. The voice acting is really good. It feels so nice to watch something, admittedly very cursed, but that is actually making me laugh in intended ways, and not like out of sadness. They come to a screeching halt at this pyramid and then zoop off again. Unfortunately, Metapig is back to ruin my fun with a completely factually incorrect bit of information.
If you've never seen one, this is a pyramid.
Nope, not that bit. Wait for it.
It was built by the Jews.
Yeah. I was having so much genuine fun with the animation and the voices that I did like a spit take at this moment. I don't know who needs to hear this, but the Jews didn't build the pyramids. I'm afraid to say that is hocus bogus. That's my new term for nonsense. If the Exodus really happened, which it almost certainly didn't, but even if it had, the pyramids would have long been there by the time the Hebrews got to Egypt, like hundreds of years. This isn't a fact suggested by the Torah. There's no textual basis for this idea that I've ever heard. Wacky new conspiracy theories are dropping in Joshua and the Promised Land. Anyway, Joshua and Chris land together to watch the Exodus mid-happening. We see a pissed as hell Ramses II boarding his chariot to chase down the slaves.
You know, some people just never learn. God can hit them right over the head with a big, thick hammer and they still don't get it.
Yeah, man, that's like all of Exodus. It's weird. It's a cycle of people complaining, God striking them down with death and plagues, and then the people forgetting and complaining again and getting struck down with plagues. It is genuinely weird how the people of this book don't get that lesson. Josh doesn't know what Little Chris is talking about. I've decided to call him Little Chris because I think that's funny. So Little Chris explains that you fight against God, you always lose. Just like that Pharaoh is about to find out. Now at this point I did wonder, what does this have to do with Joshua's real life struggles? His problem was that his parents were too busy arguing to pay attention to him or be nice to him. It's not like Joshua was doing anything wrong. Ah well, I'm sure the movie will get round to solving that post-haste. Just a funny thing, when Lil Chris is telling Joshua about the Pharaoh getting his comeuppance, he's like, "Come on, I'll show you." And then they just kind of stand there for a few seconds. It's very funny. Lots of these horses are green. Couldn't tell you why. That is a theme in this movie. Most animals are vaguely the colour that you would associate with the animal. And then occasionally they're bright blue or bright green. And I don't know why. Josh and Lil Chris arrive at a huge wall of fire. This is our first encounter with the G-Man himself. Joshua wants to go look and Lil Chris is like, no! That's the presence of God protecting the Hebrews. Any man who touches that will die. And Joshua is still like, but come on, bro, I want to see. Come on, Josh. Josh is the kind of kid that just licks everything. I can just tell. God appears in a few different forms in this film, mostly as a sort of cloud, fire, electric ball. I think the pink cloud variant is the most common one, so that's the one I've chosen. But yeah, this represents God.
When it comes from God, a no means no. Capiche?
When a no comes from God, Father. There's a couple of really loud cow and sheep noises, which draw Joshua's attention to Moses. This is Moses. There are no cows or sheep in sight. Metapig explains Moses to us, and I'm really struggling to work out what the function of this character is. I mean, I understand that it's exposition Metapig, but like, we already have a magical, knowledgeable character who's come from God to explain God and Bible-related things to us. Like, Lil Chris could explain this stuff to Joshua and it wouldn't break the fourth wall. It wouldn't take us out of the story constantly. Metapig, functionally useless. Get rid of him. Lil Chris tells Josh to hold his breath, and then he gets thrown into the body of Joshua. Bible Joshua. The only thing that seems to connect them, because in terms of personality, adventure, like personal life arc, the only thing that seems to connect them is the name Joshua. So he becomes Joshua. But he's still little Joshua inside. For the first, one sentence, Kid Joshua puts on a more grown-up voice. And then he drops it and doesn't ever do it again. It's really funny. Lil Chris checks on him, and when Joshua says he's alright, Chris slaps him in the face. Oh, why? Suddenly Chris is like, hey kid, enjoy yourself. Knock yourself out, have a great time. I'll meet you at dawn. And flies away.
Enjoy yourself.
And enjoy yourself? Like the exodus of slaves fleeing Egypt is a right laugh? What are you talking about? Well, little Chris is gone. My favourite character is effed off. So Josh goes to see what Moses is up to. Because you would, wouldn't you? Moses looks like Gandalf right now, casting some white wizard magic shit. You know what happens here. It's the parting of the Red Sea. The really blue as hell blue Red Sea. Joshua legs it in there like, whoa dude, this is fucking sick. And fair enough. There's a really cute shot from the perspective of the water with submarine sound effects. I really like it. It doesn't make sense, but I like it. Joshua falls into the seawall and a freaking hammerhead shark comes towards him. And another point of effort for Jim for picking a distinctive species that does actually appear in the Red Sea. Stupid fish movie Finding Jesus? Take notes. Cut to the Pharaoh getting stopped by God's fiery wrath, or fiery protection, that kills people. And he's really pissed off. He does the brilliant pissed off face again. It's really interesting because this is the first time that we've gone away from the protagonist's perspective. We've always been with Joshua throughout the story so far. But since Lil Chris left, the dynamic has shifted, so I don't mind it. It doesn't feel jarring. I think I might be a Joshua and the Promised Land apologist. The Pharaoh has a brilliant line read here.
We're going to get those Hebrews back or kill them all!
Absolutely fab. No notes. They follow after the slaves, chasing them into the parting of the Red Sea. Cut back to Joshua and Lil Chris is back!
Hey kid, miss me?
Yeah, man! Oh, you're talking to Joshua. Yeah, right. Cool. Joshua's tired and he wants to go home because being a slave fleeing persecution fucking sucks. And also a shark nearly ate him. Lil Chris is like, hey man, you'll be home soon. Watch this shit, it's rad. Pharaoh's army gets right into the middle of the ocean and bam. In come the waters. In come the sharks. Rip in peas, Ramses II. You had a brilliant evil face, and the way you said kill them all was hilarious. Good job. Metapig comes in again. Where's my fucking pointer? Metapig comes in again to remind us that just because the Israelites are free doesn't mean that life is easy. Get out of here, Metapig, I hate you. Put some gosh dang pants on. Surprise pandas! Skadoosh. Pandas in the desert. Why not? Why the fuck not? They spend the night snoozing in the desert, and in the morning, Moses calls Joshua over. Every time Moses talks to Joshua, he's like, me? And he's kind of starstruck, which makes sense. But from Moses' perspective, it must be really weird, because Joshua's been this trustworthy guy this whole time that he's able to rely on, and then suddenly he's acting like this little kid, yes sir, Moses is like, you can call me Moses, Joshua. Moses asks Joshua to fetch him a quail to eat, and we get this amazing scene. You can do it, Joshua! I believe in you! You're literally a lion. Moses asks Joshua to pitch his tent next to his. Ooh la la! Joshua's like, oh, I can't. And there's a tense moment where little Chris is like, what the fuck are you doing? That's Moses! And Joshua's like, I don't have a tent. So Moses gives him this fucking huge, fabulous-ass circus tent to sleep in. Don't know how he's meant to pitch that by himself every night, but okay. Oh. Never mind. The next morning, it starts snowing, and for a second I was like, what the fuckety fuck? I don't remember God bringing snow in the Bible. Luckily, Metapig is here to explain that this is actually manna. Which is described in the Bible as flake-like. I just never personally imagined it to be actual snowflake style, especially because the snowflakes in this scene are giant, and according to numbers, manna is meant to be about the size of a coriander seed, which is about 5 millimeters. Whatever, you don't care about these tidbits, let's carry on. And it can't have been that great, because God's Chosen complained about having only manna to eat. Although, as mentioned earlier, God's Chosen people here complain kind of a lot, which Metapig now mentions.
These guys just love to complain. Sure, they had enough food, but they didn't have enough water.
I'm sorry, bro, but that does seem like a valid complaint. You need water to live. I feel like God should have maybe thought ahead with that one. You know this bit, they complain to Moses, Moses goes to God, God says strike a rock, water comes out, they're all like, woohoo! Although in the movie we skip the God bit, Moses just does it. Hooray, hooray, everyone is happy, especially this walrus? Babe, what is a walrus doing here? Pandas, walrus, who cares? Who fucking cares? What's the plural of walrus? Walruses? I feel like it's probably just walruses, isn't it? Anyway, no wonder they were complaining. Walrus man's probably used to quite a bit of water. How he ended up in the Middle East anyway is a mystery. At some point the cheering sound effects turned to like an audience laughing and coughing really loudly, and I just like... Jim? What's going on? Moses and Joshua spot smoke in the distance. It's the Amalekite army preparing to attack. According to Exodus, the Amalekites were just rude AF, and they were the first group to attack the fleeing Israelites when they were weak and defenseless. So they thought. There's some alleged history between Esau and Jacob, like inherited by the Amalekites, that kind of explains away why these people are so villainous and attack the Israelites unprovoked. All you need to know, as a faithful reader of the Bible and watcher of this story, is that they're the bad guys. It's very important to justify the genocide that God commands against them later. As per Exodus, Moses commands Joshua to lead the army, and Joshua is like, I'm literally 9. Moses goes off to stand at the top of a hill and wave his arms. It sounds silly when I say it like that. That is what happens in the Bible. When everyone can see that Moses' arms are raised up, it means God's on their side and they win the battle. If Moses' arms go down, they start to lose. For real, that's what happens. Some of Moses' guys have to help him keep his arms raised. God is so weird, you guys. Monkey Regiment! Hell yeah, Team Monkey all the way, baby! You can see the Panda Regiment over here. Such a weird choice to have a completely wild mix of animals, but then split the military by species? Really odd. Also, what are these? I've seen the blue at a distance, and this is the first time we've seen them up close, and they look kinda like meerkats. From the side, they're a bit maybe kangaroo-y? But blue? Josh walks his nude little butt to the front of the line, and he's like, okay, let's fucking go. Chris whispers to Josh, and then he says some actual inspirational Joshua Bible lines. I couldn't work out exactly what the Amalekites are. They clearly have horns, like bulls maybe, rams. It's a little bit on the nose, but whatever. Also now realizing that in this world, most animals are people, but the horses are just horses. Also, fish are just fish. They head into battle, except for little Chris, who goes up to watch from the hill with Moses and help him keep his arms raised. I had to watch this twice because the first time I thought that Joshua got immediately downed by a spear, but no, he dives under it. There's an epic battle scene. Joshua gets some pretty cool moves in. There's a bit where some of the Amalekites get knocked down, and there's a bowling pin sound effect. It's great. Joshua becomes battle friends with this cheetah? Tiger? He's got blue stripes. Whatever he is, he does a mean round kick. Back to Metapig, who explains the arm thing that Moses is doing. Eventually he gets tired and our guys start to fall in battle. Joshua and Orange Kickman get cornered, things are looking pretty bleak. But then the guys, including Lil Chris, get Moses' arms back up, and the tide shifts once again in our favour. One of the really interesting things to me about homegrown Bible movies, and just sort of media, even fictive media about the Bible, in any sort of format, is how much insight you get into the creator's interpretation of different stories. Jim, via Metapig, basically describes this Moses arm thing as sort of inspirational. As long as the people can see that God is on their side, they are motivated enough to succeed in the battle. Most interpretations that I've come across and how I kind of read it is that this is more of a sort of sorcery and or prayer thing. Prayer with God directly intervening is basically sorcery. I just find that so interesting. They win the battle. Woo! Hooray! Pan across a lot of dead Amalekites. It's a bit dark. Moses wakes up the following morning to the voice of God.
Moses.
Just a casual occurrence in the life of Moses. God leads him up the small hill of Mount Sinai. More of a mound than a mountain, really. Mound Sinai. God says, if you follow my rules, you'll be my special guys, even though I made everyone. You, the Israelites, you will be my main dudes. You'll be like prophets among the people. Then we hear the 10 Commandments. And it is really weird and kind of scary and creepy hearing this coming directly from God himself. Even in weird, crappy CG animation form. It's quite freaky. There's going to be somebody out there telling me that that feeling is the Holy Spirit. It's not. That's just films make you feel things using visuals and audio. Otherwise the Holy Spirit came onto me in like Inception and shit, so don't even start.
You shall not covet anything that belongs to your neighbor.
Such as their wife or their slaves. Oh, the movie skipped that bit. Weird. Metapig then appears just as ahead to tell us that these are the elders going up the mountain with Moses. It's horrifying. This is the most cursed, like, clippy skin I've ever seen. There's a brick platform up here, which is pretty weird. Everyone bows down, and they've also split by species again. There's something kind of funky going on here. Joshua goes with Moses to see God. And Moses is like, cool, we can wait here. Time skip. What, was God, like, busy with other shit? Isn't this the main thing going on right now? Then God goes, Moses, again, and Moses walks off, leaving Joshua alone. For 40 long-ass days. Imagine your leader is like, be right back, I'll see you in a minute. And he's gone for 40 days.
He doesn't look too happy, does he, poor guy?
Right? Got such a tease. Metapig says that this is alright because hardship can build character. That's such a lame fucking... No offense to cool Christians, but that is a lame Christian thing to say. Like, something terrible happens to you, and you get, everything happens for a reason. God has a plan. Hardship builds character. You know, one of those where you're just like, fuck off. So hardship. Joshua, in the beginning, was already experiencing hardship. What does this teach him? Like, to put up with it and do what your God tells you and one day he'll reward you? That sounds dumb. Meanwhile, Moses and God inscribe 2 tablets with the 10 Commandments. Moses and Joshua head back down, Joshua having not actually seen God or met with God at all. He just, like, waited on the mountain for him. Could have been hanging out with the rest of the guys down the bottom, but whatever, I guess. They head back down to see the others, and Moses gets a fucking fright, which leads to the greatest bit of voice acting in this entire production.
No! No!
No! It's so good. The people, in their long-ass wait for God to inscribe 2 stone tablets, have started worshipping a golden calf. Now, this doesn't happen or get explained in the movie, but the golden calf kinda gets made by accident. Like, the blame that they get for this feels a little bit unfair. Metapig shows up to remind us that this is wrong, and they're all in trouble because God said no. That was like his first thing. And, you know, we know. We were there, it was like a minute ago. Moses breaks down the idol, mixes it into water, forces everyone who broke that commandment to drink it. It's a weird punishment, but that is what Exodus says, so don't blame Jim. Poor Moses has to trek back up the mountain to beg God to forgive the people. He comes back with 2 new tablets, and all is well. Except for the people who presumably got some kind of poisoning from drinking magic gold. Evil magic gold. They probably died, right? And they're finally back on the march to the titular Promised Land. Greenery! Gosh, it's beautiful here. Looks like a real nice spot in the Promised Land. Jericho. Random tidbit if you like history. Excavations at the biblical Jericho, aka Tell Us Sultan. They haven't found any traces of a city at the end of a Bronze Age, which is when it would have been there in Exodus. So for that and a number of other reasons, the academic consensus is that the Battle of Jericho never happened. Purely legendary, probably a bit of propaganda from later rulers. We see more horned dudes, and this time, they're red, which is a super bad sign. Joshua heads into Jericho with Moses' spies to see what the heck is going on there. That awkward moment when the land that God promised you is already occupied. We pass a guy with a bottle, presumably of alcohol. There's a lot of coughing sound effects. Really doing a good job of selling the place as a shithole with minimal visuals. Nicely done. The bull guy with the bottle here? Man, that's a colour mistake. Fully thought he was holding onto his penis. Maybe making everyone nude was a mistake. And hang on a second. There's pigs, but there are also pig guys. It's the Animal Crossing dilemma all over again. Joshua witnesses the people of Jericho sacrificing a child and laughing evilly. Sometimes it feels a bit over the top, the way the Pentateuch goes about presenting the enemies of the Israelites as evil, to the point where it's almost hard to believe. I'm just saying. Joshua comes back from his expedition and little Chris is like, hey man, what's up? You seem sad. You seem bummed out. Turns out Joshua is having the admirable ethical dilemma because Moses said they've got to invade this land, but they can't do that without getting rid, killing, of the people that are already here.
This is gonna take some quick thinking.
Every youth pastor when a kid asks about biblical genocide. Little Chris is like, no, don't worry, pal, they're the bad guys. Like, really terribly evil. This bit sucks, except for this one brief moment where Chris mentions adultery, and Joshua asks, what's that?
Never mind that.
They've broken all God's commandments, which they haven't heard, by the way, the people of Jericho. Didn't really get much of a chance there. So God says they gotta go.
I guess, if you put it that way.
Good man.
This bit is such a realistically horrible way to hand-wave away genocide, especially for an event that didn't happen. If you accept this story as a myth about the founding of Israel and a moral teaching about obeying God's law, you don't have to excuse genocide. But Christians like this would rather have this conversation about why it was okay to kill everyone, because God said to. Mental. The music is way too whimsical for this conversation. We're going to kill them all. The fuck? Joshua reports back to Moses that the people of Jericho are evil, so let's go ahead with the invasion. The Israelites rabble a bit about how, compared to the people of Jericho, they're so weak and small, they're military. And we get a nice, good look at the walrus guy. There's a walrusy man.
Our wives and children will be taken as plunder.
Yeah, that would suck, wouldn't it? Really a moral thing to do. Taking the women and children as plunder and killing everyone else. Unless God commands it, obviously. Then it's fine.
We should choose a leader and go back to Egypt.
This voice line is repeated twice in this section, and I don't know why. The pink god cloud returns and is like, I forgive you guys, which is nice. But Joshua and Caleb, this is when we find out that Blue Stripes Lion Man is Caleb, which if I was thinking harder, I probably could have worked out sooner. It's hot. What are you gonna do? Joshua and Caleb are my favourite guys and no one else can come in my land. So as Metapig explains to us, they wander the desert for 40 years, with God punishing anyone who rebels along the way. One time, Moses got pissed off and whacked a rock twice to get water from it instead of just speaking to it nicely like God instructed him to. So despite all those years of faithful service and leading the people from slavery, God condemns him to die in the desert, because he hit a rock with a stick 2 times. Seems reasonable. Finally, the naysayers are all dead, and it's only their children who were brought up in the cult that remain. So they can finally attack Jericho.
Climb Mount Nebo and look once upon the land which you will never enter.
Harsh, man. Everything the light touches. You'll never get to go there because you disobeyed me very slightly that one time, hurting no one. Look how nice it is. Idiot. Now I'm wondering, did Joshua live those 40 years? Or does he time skip with us? Will he go back to his child body, having lived, 50 years of a man's existence? Because now he speaks as Joshua of the Bible. He's got, a very mature presence and he knows what he's doing instead of being the awkward kid. It's kind of a chilling thought. Moses says an emotional farewell to Joshua and passes over his staff, transferring the pink god particle into Joshua. Metapig enters the world, the Exodus level of the world, as an angel of God, and he tells Joshua the land is holy. Which he already knew, but whatever. It's good to have a reminder. Jericho sees the army coming and shuts up shop. Here's where we meet the ruler of Jericho, who has a little crown and a very funny face. He kind of looks like a dog, but with ram horns. I think a mistake was made in the design here because the people of Jericho are actually pretty cute compared to a lot of the animals. Joshua is now back to being like a nervous kid again, which is super weird after him being all sort of manly and mature a minute ago. I'm kind of confused. This seems like a fair stage to lose a bit of confidence, but he did already lead an army into battle once. Joshua says, look, they're just waiting for us. And Chris is like, well, yeah, duh, they're waiting. You're about to attack them. And Joshua's like, no, not the city. The angels. And these guys appear. A bunch of Chris's, but with their legs sort of melted into a ghost tail. I don't know what to say about that, really. The king of Jericho is just kind of looking at them like, what the fuck? And his people bring him a chair. The Israelites circle the city with the ark containing the stone tablets for 6 days, while the king and the people of Jericho are like, what are these freaks doing? They finally stop on day 7, aka the Sabbath, which, if you remember God's 10 commandments from earlier, is supposed to be kept sacred by not working. I guess the appearance of God's angels kind of make this an exception to the rule, but it does seem kind of funky. The people of Jericho have a good evil laugh at these wacky Hebrews, because they're the villains. This is the only bit of the film that I found kind of boring. It takes a really long time to get to the battle. Luckily, this giant Chris appears to tide us over. Down come the walls of Jericho, baby. This red blob becomes a lion's face and then flies away. Tragically, Lil Chris reminds Joshua that this is actually a dream and takes him away back home before we can get to the slaughter. He Star Trek transports back to his room. And I love this skateboarding poster. It appears to be a female lion as well, which makes it double rad. Welcome back from your 40-year dream, kiddo.
You live at a different age than Joshua did. The dream was just a taste of what you can have.
What you can have? Like being a slave, fleeing persecution from your masters? Living in the desert for 40 years? Leading a military? Like, what are you talking about?
But I'll miss you.
Me too. Even if the moral lesson you're imparting here isn't really clear, you're a fun little guy, little Chris. You're a fun little Chris little guy. Chris and Joshua hug, and I will admit to you, I said "aw" out loud here. I get really emotional at movies, okay, and TV, and sometimes YouTube shorts. Don't at me. And with that, Christopher Andrew Eugene Bizzoni disappears. And Joshua is left alone. Or is he? Oh no, the head thing followed him home! Joshua picks up his toy sword and slices it clean in half, where it turns back into a bit of stone and crumbles away. Crumbles away. Crumble. At the dinner table, Dad Lion is chowing down. I will not play that bit for you because the eating sounds made... oh, they set my teeth on edge. He's really masticating. Mom Lion is pissed off with Dad Lion again because they haven't said grace and Joshua isn't even here yet. Dad Lion is like, I don't care about grace. Nom 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 nom.
I'm sick of this. First it's the car, now it's dinner.
Wine.
Joshua comes in all happy and full of grace, and they all just sort of look at each other and smile for a bit. Guys, Mum Lion and Dad Lion apologize to each other, and yeah.
And they lived happily ever after.
I'm so confused by this. Joshua's parents were being really stinky. So an angel of the Lord came down to show him a dream of the Exodus, and then he was just so smiley at dinner that it changed how his parents feel? Like, am I being stupid, or is there no obvious moral here? The story they presented of the Exodus and what's going on in Joshua's real life just don't match up. They don't gel together.
They were certainly better off.
Why? This would make more sense if Joshua's dad had the dream. He was the one that needed to change. He just magically changed after Josh had a nap.
Just goes to show you what a little courage can do.
What are you talking about? And that's it. Roll credits. 4 years, baby. So, Joshua in the Promised Land. Let's come back in. Let's come back in together, shall we, to talk about Joshua in the Promised Land. This is a biggie. This goofy-looking, cursed CG film, written, directed, and animated by a single man over 4 years. This was more fun to watch than any terrible animated film, Christian film, I have ever watched on this channel, including and especially those made by small teams or actual production companies. I think a big part of that might be the fact that it's largely a one-man job. The main striking difference between this and, say, something produced by Wow Now, is that it was made by someone who cares. The CG is horrifying, of course, but the whole thing is actually animated. The characters speak in time with their dialogue. That doesn't sound like much, but when you've watched a fish go ba 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 on a fucking loop for however many hours, you start to appreciate this kind of thing. The sound effects line up with the action and the voiceover. They all complement each other and gel really nicely. At the very least, that makes something coherent. There is a very coherent and cohesive direction of this whole thing. It uses comedy really well. It nails the comedic timing in a few places that made me really laugh out loud. Intentionally. Not like, oh my god, this is so bad. Like, ha ha ha, Chris is funny. It doesn't take itself too seriously. Now, the flaws. Given the tools available at the time, and the fact that one man made it, I'm gonna say nothing of the animation and the models and stuff, you know? I think for a one-man 4-year project, it looks a lot better than what you could expect from the production situation, I think. Now, if you're making anything with anthropomorphic animals, you gotta set some ground rules, man. I'm struggling to say this. If some animals are animals, and some animals are people animals, make that distinct. If you have some pigs that are animals, and some pigs that are people, you're gonna upset me. The message. Right. From an ethical perspective, it's about Exodus. It's hand-waving away genocide for children, right? It makes some wonky statements. The Jews built the pyramids? That's the most insane thing I've heard in a long time. The general storytelling is fine. Like I say, they use comedic moments to lighten the mood and lift different sections. It generally flows quite well together. There's only that one little bit that I started to get a bit bored. The pacing is actually pretty good throughout. However, most of the story is just Exodus. So the pre-existing material made for most of the story. They had to decide what bits to include, what bits to skip over. And I think they did do a pretty good job of that. The original story of Kid Joshua and his parents, it just doesn't make sense. His parents aren't good to him, so he has a dream about Exodus, and that changes everything. Like, what? It doesn't make any sense, right? Make him a rebellious kid. Make him the one who doesn't care about saying grace. He's naughty, he's getting in trouble with his parents. Then show him Exodus, responsibility, being faithful to God. Boom, you have a moral lesson that actually makes sense. Jim, I have just solved the main problem of your film for you. You're welcome. It's not the animation that's the problem, nor the voice acting. It's funny to look at because it's super old CG done by one guy. We can all have a good chuckle at everybody's eyebrows. And their nudeness. God, they're so nude. It's the story not gelling together that really lets the film down. And the genocide. But if you're adapting the Torah, you can't really help that. The meta-pig narrator. Get rid. Don't need him. You already have a meta character, an angel, who is there to provide any exposition you need. He can provide that directly to Joshua, therefore we don't have to break the fourth wall and come out of the narrative every few minutes. Jim probably thought it was a funny idea to have a pig in a bow tie explain some context for us, but it's unnecessary. It doesn't add anything. It just distracts us from the narrative, right? We're already in a dream. We don't need to be in a dream in a theatre. That's like too many levels deep. No wonder Inception came to mind when I was thinking about films earlier. This is one of my biggies, right? How is the sound design so much better than modern studio-produced films like Wow Now and High Flyers stuff? I'll tell you why. Because it was worth every minute. You can have the smallest budget, right? The tiniest team, the crappiest software. If you actually care about the thing that you're making, the difference will be enormous. The stuff that corporations pump out is completely soulless because there's nobody, at least it certainly comes across that nobody, if anybody cares, it's like one guy and they don't get to input enough on the product. It seems like nobody cares at any stage. The writers are just, how can we fill the time? The animators just get this long to produce a couple of animated cycles. Or they're just buying models with preset animation cycles off of different websites. The editor doesn't know anything about sound design, they're just putting stuff together as fast as possible so they can get a paycheck and go home. This was made by somebody who wanted to make it, who actually wanted to tell this story. They wanted to make it entertaining for kids, so they made it genuinely funny. It's the difference between working on a film to try and get it done versus working on a film because you want to make the film. And the difference is enormous. Is it a good movie? Hell no. But is it fun to watch? Yeah. Both intentionally and unintentionally. Lazy animated media always ends up so boring. I mean, Bibletown, I wanted to just jump out the window. It was so boring. Joshua and the Promised Land is only boring in a couple of tiny places. Because let's be honest, the Pentateuch has a lot of long and boring parts. Right? It goes back to the source material, I'm afraid. For all its flaws, and granted some of them quite ethically serious, this is just such a better experience than Finding Jesus or Bibletown, even Alien Predator, although I did really enjoy that. So, let me know your thoughts down below. Did anybody already know about this movie? Is anyone surprised by my own thoughts? Is anyone like, whoa, Emma, you've completely missed the bar on a couple of things. Let me educate you. Please do. If you don't know what to say, you can just say something silly. Do something about bees or something, I don't know. If you did enjoy this video, there is a playlist of movie reactions and reviews on my channel. Do subscribe so you don't miss future videos. Give this video a cheeky like, leave a little cheeky comment. It doesn't have to be cheeky, but that is allowed. Check out the description for links to things like my Ko-fi, my Patreon, today's sponsor. Those all really, really help me. You can also become a channel member right here. You get comment priority and some silly little emotes, and you get a little chick next to your name. It's friggin' adorable. With that, I must give a big old shout out and a thank you to my giant chickens and colossal quackers over on Patreon, especially Conla. God damn it, Conla. Most importantly, have yourselves a very lovely week. I'm gonna get an ice pop, and I will see you really soon.